Australians drink roughly 530 million litres of wine every year. Most of it comes from bottles and casks that never tell you what is actually in them. Not the additives, not the processing aids, not the sugar, not the fining agents made from fish bladders, egg whites, or milk proteins. Because in Australia, wine is exempt from carrying an ingredients list. It is exempt from carrying a nutrition information panel. The only thing a winemaker is legally required to put on the label is the alcohol percentage and whether it contains sulfites. Every other food and drink you buy in this country has to tell you what is in it. Wine does not. And the industry likes it that way. Here are 12 wine brands sold in Australia you should think twice about buying. Counted down from least worst to worst. Number 12. Gossip's Sweet Lips Moscato. This is not wine in the way most people understand the word. It is a sugar delivery system with a wine label. Moscato-style wines can carry anywhere from 60 to over 100 grams of residual sugar per litre. For context, Coca-Cola has 106 grams per litre. You are drinking something in the same sugar range as soft drink, but it comes in a wine bottle so it feels sophisticated. There is no requirement for Gossips or any wine brand in Australia to print the sugar content on the label. No grams per serve. No grams per 100 millilitres. Nothing. SANS updated the Food Standards Code in August 2025 to allow sugar content claims on alcoholic beverages, but disclosure remains voluntary. You can now say your wine is low sugar. You still do not have to say when it is high sugar. That is not a labelling standard. That is a marketing loophole. If the same sugar content were in a bottle of juice, it would be printed on the back in black and white. In a wine bottle, it is invisible. Number 11. Banrock Station. Banrock Station sells itself as the environmental wine. The label features a wetland conservation partnership. The marketing talks about habitat restoration and sustainable viticulture. It feels like a purchase you can feel good about. Now look at what is in your hand. A mass-produced wine from the Riverland, one of Australia's largest bulk grape growing regions, bottled by Accolade Wines, now part of Vinarchy, a company formed from the merger of Accolade Wines and Pernod Ricard's wine operations, with reported annual net sales exceeding $1.5 billion. Banrock Station is a brand inside a portfolio inside a mega corporation. The wetland donation is real. The environmental branding is a design decision attached to an industrial-scale wine operation sourcing grapes from one of the most water-intensive irrigated regions in the Murray-Darling Basin. You are not paying for better wine. You are paying for a story printed on cardboard. Number 10. Hardy Stamp. Hardy's is one of the oldest wine names in Australia. Thomas Hardy planted his first vines in McLaren Vale in 1853. That heritage is on every bottle of Stamp. What is not on the bottle is the fact that Hardy's is now a brand inside Vinarchy alongside Jacobs Creek, St Hallett and Petaluma. The Stamp range is sourced from southeastern Australia, a geographical indication that covers New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia, the Act, and parts of Queensland. That is roughly 95% of the country's wine production. It is the largest GI in Australia, and it tells you almost nothing about where the grapes were actually grown. It is the wine equivalent of made in Australia from imported and local ingredients. The name Hardy's implies provenance. The GI on the back confirms there is none. Number 9. Lindemans Bin 65 Chardonnay. Lindemans was once the poster child for Australian wine exports. Bin 65 was a genuine success story, approachable, consistent, and well-priced. Then the brand was acquired by Foster's and, in the words of one of the world's most respected wine critics, was thoroughly trounced as quality slipped while production scaled up. Today Lindemans sits under Treasury Wine Estates. The Bin 65 you buy now is not the Bin 65 that built the brand's reputation. The recipe changed. The sourcing changed. The corporate ownership changed. The label stayed the same. That is how brand erosion works. You recognize the name because it earned trust 20 years ago. The product behind the name has been reformulated to hit a price point, not a quality standard. Number 8. McGuigan Black Label. McGuigan is owned by Australian Vintage Limited, a company that has been through 4 chief executives in 5 years. One of those executives was rehired after being fired for what the company described as a gross error of judgment. Australian Vintage is currently undergoing what industry observers have called the biggest operational overhaul of any major Australian wine producer. The Black Label range is designed for volume. It is priced for volume. It is made for volume. When a company cannot keep a CEO for more than 12 months, it is not investing in the wine. It is managing the crisis. You are buying the product of a company in survival mode, not a company investing in what goes into the bottle. Number 7. Wolf Blass Red Label. Wolf Blass makes excellent wine. The Black Label, Platinum, and Grey Label ranges have won more trophies than almost any other Australian producer. The Red Label is not those wines. The Red Label exists to put a prestigious name on a shelf at a low price point. It is sourced from southeastern Australia. It is made to a formula designed for consistency across millions of bottles. Mass market wines like this are, in the words of one industry analysis, engineered and manipulated by food scientists and are full of additives such as sulfur dioxide and oak adjuncts, in turn creating consistent, albeit one-note flavors. Oak adjuncts deserve explanation. Instead of aging wine in an oak barrel, which costs thousands of dollars and takes months, producers drop oak chips, oak staves, or oak powder into stainless steel tanks. The wine picks up some oak flavor in days instead of months. The label does not say aged with oak chips. It says nothing at all, because it does not have to. Number 6. De Bortoli Premium Cask Wine. The 4-litre wine cask is an Australian invention. It is also a vehicle for moving surplus wine at the lowest possible price per litre. At roughly $15 for 4 litres, cask wine can cost less per litre than bottled water. Australia currently has an estimated 262 million litres of surplus wine in storage. Red wine stock levels sit at 2.77 times the current annual sales forecast. Global wine consumption in 2025 fell to levels last seen in 1961, when the world's population was 40% of what it is today. Someone has to absorb that surplus. The cask absorbs it. That is not a criticism of De Bortoli specifically, it is a description of what the cask market is. It exists because there is too much wine and not enough demand. Grape prices in many regions are sitting at about half the cost of production. Growers are ripping out millions of vines, and the wine that cannot be sold at a branded price gets funneled into casks and sold by the litre. The cask is the destination for wine that has nowhere else to go. Number 5. Rawson's Retreat by Penfolds. Penfolds is arguably Australia's most prestigious wine brand. Grange sells for hundreds of dollars a bottle and is considered one of the finest wines in the world. Rawson's Retreat shares the Penfolds name and costs around $10 to $12. The gap between those two products is not a sliding scale. It is a cliff. Rawson's Retreat is sourced from southeastern Australia. It is a mass-produced commercial wine that borrows the halo of a luxury name. The Penfolds crest on a $10 bottle does not mean the wine inside has any connection to the winemaking standards, the vineyard sources, or the barrel programs that make Penfolds famous. It means Treasury Wine Estates, which owns Penfolds, has decided that the brand name is worth more on a cheap bottle than the reputational risk of putting it there. You are paying for a name. The name is doing all the work. The wine does not have to. Number 4. Jacob's Creek Classic. Jacob's Creek was once Australia's largest wine brand internationally. It introduced millions of people to Australian wine in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Then it started disappearing. UK supermarkets dropped it from their shelves. Retailers stopped stocking it. In early 2026, you would have had to search hard to find a bottle at all in some markets. Earlier this year, Vinarchy relaunched Jacob's Creek with completely new packaging, a new flavor profile, and what it calls taste-led cues. The labels now feature the taste profile rather than the grape variety. That is a significant admission. When a brand replaces the variety name on the front of the bottle with flavor descriptors, it is telling you the grape is no longer the selling point. The engineering is. The new Jacob's Creek is designed to appeal to cocktail and aperitif drinkers. That is a pivot away from wine and toward a wine-adjacent beverage. If the best version of your product is the one that tastes least like wine, the product has a problem. Number 3. Woolworths and Coles house brand wines. The duopoly controls Australian grocery. It also controls a significant portion of the retail wine market. Supermarket house brand wines are sourced from the bulk market at the lowest available price. In a market with 262 million litres of surplus wine, the buyer has all the power and the grower has none. These wines are purchased on price per litre, blended for consistency, and packaged for margin. There is nothing wrong with a supermarket selling wine. There is something worth knowing about where that wine comes from and why it costs what it does. When grape prices are sitting at half the cost of production, the wine that fills a $6 supermarket bottle is the product of a grower who is losing money on every ton they sell. Your saving is their loss. And the label does not tell you that. It says product of Australia and leaves it there. Number 2. Cleanskin mystery wines. Cleanskin wines are sold without a producer's name, without a winery, and often without a vintage. Australian law requires only the alcohol content, volume, additives declaration, and standard drink information. Everything else is absent. Cleanskins exist because the wine industry has a structural oversupply problem. They are surplus stock, cancelled export orders, end of vintage excess, or wines that did not meet a winery's brand standards but are still drinkable. You can find excellent cleanskins. You can also find wine that is being sold because no one else wanted it. The problem is not that cleanskins exist. The problem is that you have no way of knowing which kind you are buying. No producer name, no vineyard, no winemaker, no accountability. If a branded wine disappoints you, you can avoid it next time. If a clean skin disappoints you, there is no name to remember and no one to hold responsible. Number 1. Yellowtail. Yellowtail is the most commercially successful Australian wine brand in history. It exports roughly 12.5 million cases to more than 50 countries. It accounts for more than a quarter of all bottled wine leaving Australia. In the United States, it once outsold all French wine producers combined. It is also the brand that, according to multiple industry critics, damaged the international reputation of Australian wine more than any other single product. The criticism is specific. Yellowtail is made at industrial scale by Casella Family Brands in Yenda, New South Wales. A former winemaker at the company alleged to the Daily Beast that Mega Purple, a grape juice concentrate used to artificially darken wine colour and add sweetness, is used regularly. The company states that the only additive used is sulfur dioxide. Mega Purple is not technically classified as an additive in Australia. It is a grape-derived product. So both statements could theoretically be true at the same time. The broader issue is what Yellowtail represents. It is wine engineered by food scientists for mass-market palatability. Oak adjuncts simulate barrel aging. Flavor consistency across millions of bottles is achieved through processing, not viticulture. And the brand is sold at a price point that makes it impossible for smaller, higher quality Australian producers to compete on the same shelf. One critic described Yellowtail's flavor profile as being engineered to suit the Coca-Cola tastes of the American consumer. Whether you consider that a compliment or an indictment depends on what you think wine is. But here is what is not debatable. Yellowtail built its empire on volume, not transparency. And because Australian wine has no ingredients disclosure requirement, you will never see a full list of what is in the bottle. You will see a kangaroo. And that is supposed to be enough. Here is what sits behind all 12 of those entries. Australia has one of the most permissive wine labelling regimes in the developed world. The EU introduced mandatory ingredients and nutrition labelling for wine in December 2023. Australia still does not require either. SANSA's Standard 4.5.1 lists the approved additives and processing aids for wine production: tartaric acid, grape juice concentrates, cultured yeasts, fining agents, preservatives, grape-derived color extracts, tannins, oak wood, but none of these need to appear on the label unless they are classified as allergens. Sulfites above 10 mg per kilogram must be declared. Casein, egg white, milk, and isinglass must be mentioned because they are allergens. Everything else, the acids, the enzymes, the concentrates, the tannins, the oak products, remains invisible. That is the system. And within that system, there are producers who choose to do better. Here are 3 wines worth buying. Number 3. Burton Vineyard Metal Label. Burton is a family-owned winery in the Barossa Valley. The metal label range offers single-region, single-varietal wines at around $12 to $15. The sourcing is specific: Barossa Valley, High Eden, or Limestone Coast, not the catch-all southeastern Australia. You get a real region, a real variety, and a winemaker whose name is on the business. In a market flooded with corporate mega brands, family ownership means the person making the wine is the same person bearing the financial consequences of its quality. That alignment matters. Available at Dan Murphy's and Bilyeu's nationally. Number 2. Taylor's Estate. Taylor's is a third-generation family winery in the Clare Valley, South Australia. The estate range, Shiraz, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Chardonnay, has won more than 500 awards at domestic and international wine shows, including Best of Show Australia at the 2025 Berliner Wine Trophy. The wines are estate-grown, meaning the grapes come from Taylor's own vineyards. That matters because it means full control over viticulture, harvest timing, and grape quality. When a winery grows its own fruit, it is accountable for the product from vine to bottle. No anonymous bulk purchases, no surplus dumping. The estate Shiraz sits around $15 to $18 and consistently over-delivers against wines at twice the price. Available at all major retailers nationally. Number 1. Penfolds Bin Series, specifically Bin 389 and Bin 28. If you are going to spend more than $30 on a bottle of Australian wine, this is where the investment starts making sense. These are the wines that justify the Penfolds name, not Rawson's Retreat. Bin 389 is often called Baby Grange because it is matured in the same barrels previously used for Grange. Bin 28 is a warm climate Barossa Shiraz with a track record spanning decades of vintages. Both wines have transparent regional sourcing, named winemakers, and a production process that is documented and verifiable. They represent what Australian wine can be when the goal is quality rather than volume. They are not cheap. But they are honest about what they are and what they cost to make. The price reflects the wine, not the marketing. 2 questions. 5 seconds each. Every time you pick up a bottle. 1. Does the label name a specific region, Barossa Valley, Clare Valley, Margaret River, Yarra Valley, or does it say Southeastern Australia? If it says Southeastern Australia, the grapes could have come from anywhere across 5 states and territories. That is not provenance. That is geography so broad it is meaningless. 2. Is the producer a company you can find, contact, and hold accountable, or is the wine an anonymous product inside a corporate portfolio with no name on the label and no story behind the bottle? Traceability is the simplest test of quality. If the producer is proud of where the wine comes from, they will tell you. If they are not telling you, ask yourself why. Australia has 2,500 wineries. Most of them are small, family-owned, and making wine with more care than the mega brands can afford to. The tragedy of the wine glut is not that there is too much wine, it is that the surplus is concentrated in bulk production while small producers struggle to survive. Your $15 can go to a corporate portfolio managing a crisis, or it can go to a family vineyard investing in the next vintage. The label will not tell you which is which. But now you know what questions to ask. Which brand on this list surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. And if someone you know still grabs the same bottle off the shelf every week without looking at it, share this with them. They deserve to know what the label is not telling them. Subscribe if you want to see what we pull apart next. I will see you in the next one.